Hello. We're here to talk about making VC PC. Now that's just a catchy way of saying we're going to be talking about video conferencing as a platform and talking about ways to improve it so that everyone has a better experience. Throughout the course of this discussion, we might use terms such as Zoom, Teams to refer to video conferencing, but we're just using the colloquially accepted term. We are, in fact, not singling anyone out and talking entirely about video conferencing. I'm here with two gentlemen, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Great. So I'm Simon Kitson. I'm the Smart Meetings Director for Maverick in Europe. Maverick is the specialist AV division of Tech Data, and we focus on meeting rooms and signage solutions.
Steve Hudson, COO of Project Audiovisual. We are a unified communications specialist specializing in video platforms.
I want to start with talking about stress and fatigue. Ever since VC usage skyrocketed, these things have started to be quantified. There are multiple studies out there. The study that I would like to reference is Nonverbal Overload in Technology, Mind, and Behavior. It points to cognitive load as one of the key things that results in stress. Basically, the gist is, it's harder to pick up non-verbal cues over video conferencing, hence making you work harder, hence resulting in stress and fatigue. What are your thoughts on removing this from the video conferencing experience?
So if I could start, I think the brain is not designed to sit and listen to a PC for 8 or 9 hours every day. You know, and I think we've all been there. We've sat there, we've gone from one video call to the next video call to the next video call. And the brain just gets overloaded at trying to soak in that information that's coming out of there. So I think there's a couple of things you can do. You can make your meetings 25 minutes, not 30 minutes. You can make them 50 minutes, not an hour. You can use tools like Outlook and Google Calendar to auto set your meetings so that you have that little break between each one. And I think one of the other things is that the VC platforms now are starting to use these live reaction capabilities. So if you like something, you can put your thumbs up. If you want to say well done to somebody, you press the clap hands icon. Then you're not having to react yourself. You can let the platform do the talking for you.
Taking that a little bit further, Simon, is I think what it is video usage it's 20 times what it was from pre-pandemic, and we're all guilty of not scheduling ourselves. And Simon pointed that out. Is myself personally, my meetings I look at making them 45 minutes or 20 minutes. And I do this purposely now, so I'm not sat in back-to-back meetings, which comes with fatigue. Also, if you have a look at the layouts on traditional and the first versions of video, people are all over the screen. So what you've got, you're always trying to find somebody head moving, and that really does brings that fatigue to the forefront. So you start looking at what are the video platforms doing. What are they doing and you can see them. I think Microsoft are probably one of the big ones for it, with the new layouts coming. Things like Front Row, 21:9 screens. The fact that then all of a sudden, with the layout, you've got all your participants sat at the bottom of the screen, all at eye level, and all in a separate box. So you're not getting that so much fatigue. They are looking at the things you can do. The raise hand, the loop features, they just help with this.
And spotlighting the active speaker. So as Steve was saying, so that you don't have to say, oh God, who said that? If you spotlight the active speaker, then their video appears larger on the screen, and that just reduces a little bit the fatigue. One other thing which came to mind listening to Steve, and I apologize to her because I can't recall her name, but there's a lady from Logitech who used a phrase to me, no agenda, no attender. So if there wasn't a reason and a purpose for the meeting, she didn't join it. And cut the meetings down, have an agenda, have an end goal that you're trying to achieve from that meeting.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
To talk about an agenda, it's also, if you've got a long meeting, schedule breaks. Schedule breaks, not to be sat there all the time. You've also got the other things that the big stress causes are appearance. Everybody's on video now. So, if you're going from a meeting to a meeting, if you need a comfort break or do something, do you have time? And all these bits can lead to the stress building up on people. And I think these are the things.
The always video on thing is very poignant, because one of the components of that stress is what they call mirror gaze in the study I referenced. And that's, you're not meant to be looking at yourself, and you're also not meant to be staring at someone else eye to eye for that long. And it's just the nature of VC. It's also the nature of VC setups, right? And there's a lot that can be done and normalized on the cultural side, right? Normalize letting people show up to meetings, not having to put on a face. Normalize having the video off, even though we've been preaching video on for a very, very long time. But it's things like Microsoft allowing people to keep their camera on but not see themselves. Do you think there's more that can be done on the platform level, right, for video conferencing to make that whole experience of sitting and talking to a person with your video on not as draining?
I actually think this comes down to not just a platform, but it's a society and a workplace thing. So ourselves as employers, we've got to look at this. We've got to. It's a big point Simon made there was setting agendas, making meetings more engaging, and making people want to be there. Like, change it up. Have a poll. Do something that's different to keep people engaged. We've all been there when the video meetings that have gone on for so long, and then all of a sudden somebody asks you a question, you think, hang on, I've not, I've gone, or I'm slyly answering an email somewhere, but because it's, and I think we're in an early stages after the mass adoption of video for people to start looking at this differently. We talk about user adoption, and I think it goes beyond that. I think now it goes beyond about setting a precedent of what those meetings are. Are we having a meeting for a meeting? Are we having a meeting about the meeting? And it is a case of people have got to think about what they're doing and kind of like just change their whole way of using video, I think, again at the moment.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's a training thing as well. There's an assumption now that everybody knows how to use Excel or Google Sheets or whatever. But I've got a few grey hairs, so I've been around a while. That used to be a training course. When you started with a company, they would teach you how to use Excel or PowerPoint or whatever it was. But people don't do that with video. And maybe there's a training need that we've identified there.
I think the platforms have kind of really looked at it and how they simplify using video compared to how it used to be. How it's inclusive for everybody is really good. Yeah. Everybody can set in the calendar meeting, walk in a room and one button join. It means it's inclusive for everybody now. Yeah. Yes, there are things we can look at next, and I know that Microsoft in particular are looking how to make meetings more engaging.
I think it's inclusive where everyone can use it, but I think the part where how everyone can use it to minimize fatigue and stress for themselves and to have the best experience for themselves, those steps are a bit complex. Blurring your background, changing it, and making sure that the option to not have your video on every time, right? It's not a default. Things like that, those little, it's not even super user stuff. It's just like that one step ahead, but people do need help with that so that they can tailor their
Going
experience.
Back to the user adoption piece where you can, and I think it's down to people, and maybe it's something that companies should look at, and maybe as a society we should look at, and that is video etiquette. Is there something? Could somebody write a white paper on video etiquette?
Corporate culture is so big. This is such a big part.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to start adopting it and actually like codifying it and getting it out to people. early, like as soon as you get in, you go like, this is video etiquette, so that they know and they can prepare whether or not they want to, engage with an etiquette like that.
I think there's another potential element there as well. Is, does it always have to be video? Could you're now seeing the platforms are starting to allow avatars, for example, and people feel less worried about a whole screen of dogs and cats and whatever you choose your avatar to be, rather than 10 sets of eyes staring at you. So there's lots.
There's ways. Moving the conversation on, we've talked about societal and cultural impact and components to the stress and fatigue, and we know that there are inequalities in society and culture that are magnified from region to region, which brings me to the next study I would like to reference. Nonverbal mechanisms predict Zoom fatigue and explain why women experience higher levels of stress. This is published in SSRM. Now, the study goes further and talks about how different age ranges and different groups experience stress in higher forms or lesser forms based on how they identify. And we don't want to say video conferencing is sexist or racist, because it's not. It's a platform, but these things are coming across, and I'd like to pick your thoughts about how we can start addressing them, nipping them in the bud.
We're going back to a society thing. Is generations have changed, and people look at things differently as well, whether it's from a male, female, a cultural point of view, and there's lots of other reasons. There's a lot of people that hate being late for a meeting, but the meeting's dragging on and they've not given themselves a break, and they're going on to the next meeting and they're running late, so they don't know what's happened. Do they look right? To say appearance is a massive thing. So again, it's a massive cultural thing across video, and different age groups and different societies, I think, view it differently as well.
Yeah, and I think as more Gen Zs come into the workplace, their adoption of video is probably much greater than somebody like me, more from the baby boomer generation. It was Gen Zs, they're using their phones, they're making FaceTime calls all the time. Their way of communicating is through social media, and their pictures are everywhere. And I do think male, female, colour, race doesn't really come into that, because they're happy sharing about who they are to a public audience. Never mind.
I was going to say, I think the platforms have come on with the delivery, like the quality of the video, the quality of the audio has helped on a cultural side with barriers across accents and things like that. They're coming across a lot better across video than what they did many years ago.
The study does point to things like the grid view being something that's a bit more intimidating for people who are not male. We're moving away from it. We've mentioned spotlight, we're moving gallery, but do you think there's more that can be done to kind of soften there are 10 people looking at you right now, there are 20 people looking at you right now? Is there something that can be done outside of the platform in terms of how we're structuring these spaces where these VC conversations are taking place?
Yeah,
I think directional audio is one as well.
Yeah.
Is if you're speaking to somebody on the left side of the screen, should the audio come from the left? If you're speaking to somebody on the right side of the screen, because again, you're not fighting against natural instincts. So there are things that can be done. I know Microsoft again are looking really into this, and there's some bits that will be coming from them around directional audio and more layouts to, again, not just be engaging, but to reduce that meeting fatigue as well.
Yeah, we were a couple of my colleagues were playing around with VR headsets in Oculus headsets in the Meta marketplace, or whatever they call it, the metaverse. Not the metaverse, but the Facebook version of video meetings. And the headset really helps, I think, because, and with the spatial audio, if the guy moved across to one side of the room, the audio moved with him and coming back again. And I think that just helps engage the attendees, and it stops them feeling like, oh, these 10 pairs of eyes bearing down on me. There's definitely technology advancements coming.
Excellent. And on to another technology advancement that I would really like to see, and that's around the piece of collaboration. So right now, we're going back to the office, and one of the big selling points is, number one, connection, meeting people face to face, right? That's something VC cannot replace.
Yeah.
However, the second part is in-person collaboration. There's a study, Virtual Communication Curbs Creative Idea Generation. It was published by Nature. And the study had two really contrasting points. The first one was, when it comes to decision making, there are no discrepancies between decision making over video conferencing and decision making in person, especially in terms of speed. Everyone will arrive to a quorum in pretty much the same time.
Yeah.
They did, however, find it's harder to collaborate. It's harder to ideate, harder to generate ideas over VC, and it's much easier to do it in person. And one of the reasons was, when we go on VC, we kind of fall into this hierarchical, you're going to have a go, you're going to have a go, you're going to have a go. And that's not how conversations work, right? If you look at how we've been talking, I'm hogging it right now, and then I throw it to you guys straight up, yada, yada, yada. What do you guys think? Can VC get to a point where it gets rid of that need for in-person collaboration?
I think so. And I think, well, there was a study Microsoft released last year, the hybrid work paradox, they called it, that I think it was 73% of people want to continue a hybrid way of working, but 67% of them wanted to be able to go back to the office and collaborate with their colleagues. But guess what? When they go back in, there's going to be a remote attendee, or two or three. And how do you keep that communication going? Well, using things like the full workflow capabilities of the Microsoft platform or the Google platform, for example, you can take that work wherever. You can draw on a whiteboard with a pen. You can digitize that into the Microsoft whiteboard or onto a Word document. You can then share that. You can all have access to that through OneDrive and SharePoint and Google Drive. And then I think you can really bring all of those video and collaboration components together virtually. You don't have to be in the same room to do that.
I think this goes down to, again, some personal preferences as well.
Yeah.
So it is a case of, what level is the meeting? What needs to be done? What are they? Can they have 2 or 3 meetings where they collaborate out of the office? Because everybody lives in massive locations like there. You've got somebody in Dallas, somebody in the UK, and it works. However, they might get to the end of that project, say it's a project, and they might want to do the last meeting together, so they can then meet each other and finish off what they're doing. I think we're early stages of what's possible, and I think there's a lot more features to come. If you look, you can only look at Microsoft Teams. Recently, 300 new features. It's always improving. A lot more connected device with the Neat board now, Yay-Links board, where you'll be able to bring them in. They are their own MTR, but you can bring them in as a connected device, work on them within the room. So I think collaboration is definitely coming on video. It will improve.
I think that's what's missing. Personally, this is my personal viewpoint, is that the peripheral for collaboration, the best one, it's not out there. And to be honest, if you get really meta, it's got to be pen and paper in terms of ease of use, simplicity. You mentioned, hey, collaboration can be enriched. There are all these other tools, but like you mentioned, Gen Z might be very familiar with them. They might be comfortable with them, but we've got such a wide age gap and such a good, hefty
back to user adoption again, aren't we? This is the biggest thing we're finding from an integration point of view is we're seeing so many people out there who think they're a video expert and they're throwing in a bit of kit in a room, but they're not taking the customer on that journey. And this
so
now.
Let me press you on that.
Yeah.
You're out in the field.
Yeah.
They're asking you, hey, our chairman needs to use it and our 16-year-old intern needs to use this space. How do you start building something which is one click for such a big discrepancy?
So this is where workshops come in. So what we do with a lot of clients is we may run a couple of workshops with them, taking a section of their workforce and working through what their needs are. We can then deliver that back to them, look at their spaces, and every space is different. and meaning different equipment, different ways of working. Is it just a meeting room? Is it a collaboration space? Is it a larger area where we need to look at a different way of work? There's just so much we can do. We do a lot of Teams live events rooms as well, and just things where everything can be more engaging. But once you've done that, you've had the workshops, you've delivered what you want, it's then about how do we then give them training and get their users engaged and knowing how to use those systems. And that is something that I find in people aren't doing. It's a journey, it's not just about, and if companies were to look at it properly and look at the amount they're spending to fit out these rooms, look at it as a whole journey. Don't look at it just putting some equipment in rooms so somebody can make a call. Look at what you want to use them for, and get your users trained, get them adopted properly. It works.
I couldn't agree more with what Steve just said about the spaces. You know, what is it you're trying to achieve from that space, and then identifying those needs, and then the right technology and the solutions that can support that. But I think referring back to some of the earlier questions as well, I think it's really important now. We're seeing more and more times that HR are involved in the decision making, because HR really do care about people. I'm not saying they didn't previously, but during the pandemic, you know, we're all in this weird world of working from home. We're now starting to come back into the offices. We're hybrid working, and HR are concerned about how people's well-being is with the reports like Zoom fatigue. So taking insight information as well from the technology that's being deployed to understand how many hours a day people are sitting there, how much a room is being adopted, whether there's meeting room 1 is full with 5 people 10 hours every day and it's got the capacity for 20 people, let's move them into meeting room 2. You know, all of those sorts of data and analytics is going to help drive the right technology in the right environments.
Gentlemen, closing thoughts, or what's one thing that you would really like to see, a development that you think will make VCPC? My personal one is normalizing, saying, I am not contributing to this meeting, I will now be bowing out. Just allow people to leave meetings that they feel they're not being productive with. It's still something that needs adoption, but I would really like to have that be out there as an option. It would save everyone a lot of hassle. Your thoughts?
Gosh, embrace it. Embrace it, because it's not going to go away. Hybrid working is not going to go away. It's a cliche, but it's the new normal. Embrace it. Find the thing that's right for you, and make sure you're working for a company that adopts the culture.
For me, it's it's both personal, where you need to manage your own time, manage your own meetings, make sure that you're scheduling your own workload, as in what meetings you need to attend, what meetings you don't. From an employer's point of view, I think, again, we go back to that. People need to look at who they're working with and look how they're going to adopt these spaces, not just from what equipment, but this is a complete journey. It's like, how do they decide they're taking the right equipment? How are they going to empower their employees and their workforce to use the equipment? And I think that's a really, really important thing, is don't put the equipment in and then give nobody any training to be able to use it, because all you're going to do is fail. So find a company you can work with, that you can go on a journey with.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Great to be here.